Paradise. That's what the soldiers called it when they first saw these islands from their transport ships. Crystal waters, white sand beaches, palm trees swaying in the tropical breeze. But within hours, these beaches would become something else entirely. Slaughterhouses, mass graves, nightmares given form. Between 1943 and 1945, the United States Marine Corps fought a series of battles across the Pacific so brutal, so devastating, that they would redefine modern warfare forever. Island hopping, they called it. But there was nothing casual about what happened on these specks of coral and sand. This is the story of the Pacific's bloodiest battles, where men fought not for miles of territory, but for yards, where the ocean ran red and the sand never forgot. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor burns. In a single morning, the Japanese Empire awakens a sleeping giant and sets in motion a war that will consume the Pacific. Within months, Japan controls an empire stretching from Burma to the Solomon Islands, millions of square miles, thousands of islands, and they've fortified every single one. The Japanese defensive strategy is simple but devastating. Make every island so costly to capture that America will lose the will to fight. They call it Gyokusai, shattering like a jewel. Fight to the last man, take as many enemies with you as possible. America's counter-strategy, island hopping. Bypass heavily fortified islands, capture strategic positions, build airfields, move closer to Japan, one bloody island at a time. But choosing which islands to invade means choosing where thousands of young men will die, and the Pentagon has no idea just how high the butcher's bill is about to become. November 20th, 1943, Tarawa Atoll, Betio Island, 2 miles long, 800 yards wide, smaller than most college campuses. The Japanese have 4,500 troops dug into coconut log bunkers and concrete pillboxes. The commander, Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki, makes a promise. 1 million men cannot take Tarawa in 100 years. He's almost right. The assault begins with the largest naval bombardment in Pacific history up to that point. 3,000 tons of shells, 6 million pounds of explosives. For 3 hours, the island disappears under a curtain of fire and smoke. Marines watching from their transport ships assume nothing could survive. They're wrong, catastrophically wrong. The tide is lower than predicted. Landing craft hang up on the coral reef 500 yards from shore. Marines have to climb out and wade through chest-deep water under withering machine gun fire. It's slaughter. Men are cut down by the dozens before they take a single step on land. The water turns red. Bodies float back out to sea with the tide. Of the first wave, only 1 in 3 reaches the beach alive. The battle rages for 76 hours, house to house, bunker to bunker, flamethrowers, grenades, bayonets. When it's over, more than 1,000 Marines are dead, nearly 2,400 wounded. Every single Japanese defender fights to the death, except for 17 Korean laborers who surrender. The tiny island is carpeted with bodies. A Life magazine photographer captures images so horrific that the American public demands they be censored. For the first time, Americans understand this war in the Pacific will be won by blood, rivers of it. After Tarawa, American commanders realize they're not just fighting an enemy, they're fighting a philosophy. The Japanese have transformed warfare into an art of death. Their defensive positions are masterpieces of military engineering, bunkers made from coconut logs that can withstand direct hits from battleship shells, interlocking fields of fire where every approach is covered by multiple machine guns, underground tunnel networks connecting positions so troops can move unseen. But the real weapon is psychological. Banzai charges at night,
waves of screaming soldiers attacking with bayonets, wounded Japanese soldiers playing dead, then detonating grenades when medics approach, snipers tied into trees, continuing to fire even after their position has been overrun. The message is clear. We will never surrender. You'll have to kill every single one of us, and we'll take as many of you with us as we can. The Marines adapt. New tactics, flamethrowers, demolition teams, tank infantry coordination. But adaptation requires experimentation, and experimentation requires blood. September 15th, 1944, Peleliu, 6 miles long, 2 miles wide. The pre-invasion briefing promises it will take 4 days. It takes 73. The Japanese commander, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, has learned from Tarawa. No more suicidal banzai charges, no more wasting men in defensive positions on the beaches. Instead, he's turned the island's central ridgeline into a fortress, the Umor Brogal. 500 caves connected by tunnels carved through coral limestone, multiple levels, ventilation shafts, underground hospitals. Some caves can hold 1,000 men, and they're positioned so that attacking any one position means exposing yourself to fire from a dozen others. It becomes known as Bloody Nose Ridge, and the name doesn't do it justice. The temperature reaches 115 degrees. Marines fight in full gear, carrying 80-pound packs up jagged coral slopes that shred uniforms and boots. The coral dust gets into every wound, causing infections. Heat stroke kills as many men as Japanese bullets. But the worst part isn't the heat. It's the realization that every yard forward costs lives. Every cave must be cleared, every position destroyed, and the Japanese have 500 caves. The Marines develop a grim routine. Scout teams locate cave entrances. Demolition teams seal some entrances, forcing defenders into kill zones. Flamethrower teams burn out the positions. Tank crews fire point-blank into cave mouths. And still, the Japanese fight. The 1st Marine Division goes into Peleliu with 9,000 men. By the time they're relieved after a month, they've suffered 6,500 casualties, 60%. The division is combat ineffective, broken. And here's the cruelest twist. Peleliu is strategically unnecessary. The airfield they're dying for? Admiral William Halsey wanted to bypass the island entirely. The decision to invade anyway haunts military historians to this day. 10,000 casualties for an island that didn't need to be taken. The Pacific nightmare is getting worse. February 19th, 1945, Iwo Jima. 8 square miles of volcanic ash and rock, strategically vital, halfway between the Mariana Islands and Japan. If captured, it provides an emergency landing site for B-29 bombers. If left in Japanese hands, its fighters threaten every bombing run to the Japanese mainland. The Joint Chiefs of Staff call it necessary. The Marines who land there will call it something else, Hell's Island. 70,000 Marines, 800 ships, the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific War. And waiting for them, 21,000 Japanese defenders under General Tadamichi Kuribashi, who has spent 8 months turning Iwo Jima into the most heavily fortified position in military history. Kuribashi has built an underground city, 11 miles of tunnels, 1,500 rooms, 5 stories deep in some places, command centers, hospitals, ammunition depots, barracks, all connected by a maze designed to confuse attackers and funnel them into kill zones. And once again, the commander issues a stern order. No useless death, no banzai charges, no theatrical last stands. Every man is ordered to kill 10 Americans before dying. Mathematics over honor. The first waves land unopposed. Marines are confused, suspicious. They trudge up terraces of volcanic ash that swallows their boots with each step. Vehicles bogged down in the black sand. They're 30 yards inland when the island explodes.
Every gun position on Iwo Jima opens fire simultaneously. Artillery, mortars, machine guns. Kuribayashi has waited for the beaches to fill with troops and equipment. Maximum carnage. Marines can't dig foxholes in the volcanic ash. They can't find cover. They can't advance. Men are hit by fire from positions they can't even see. Snipers in camouflaged spider holes. Artillery from cave mouths in Mount Suribachi. Mortars from underground positions that fire and then disappear. The first objective, Mount Suribachi, the 550-foot extinct volcano at the island's southern tip. Kuribayashi has transformed it into a fortress with 7 levels of tunnels. It has to be taken first because every Japanese gun on that mountain can hit the beaches. It takes 4 days of brutal combat, flamethrowers, satchel charges, grenades into cave mouths. On the morning of February 23rd, a patrol reaches the summit and raises a small American flag. Hours later, a larger flag is raised. Photographer Joe Rosenthal captures the moment. The image becomes the most reproduced photograph in history, a symbol of American determination and sacrifice. But here's what the photo doesn't show. The battle is less than 1/3 over. The worst is still to come. The real fortress is in the north, a landscape of gorges, ridges, and ravines, every one fortified. Names that will haunt survivors: the Meat Grinder, Turkey Knob, the Amphitheater, Hill 382. Each one must be taken yard by yard. The fighting becomes so intense that the average casualty rate exceeds 30% in frontline units. Some companies lose every officer and NCO. Some platoons cease to exist entirely. 36 days. That's how long it takes to secure Iwo Jima. 36 days that feel like 36 years. When it's over, 6,821 Americans are dead. Nearly 20,000 wounded. Every single Marine who lands on Iwo Jima is either killed or wounded, or has someone in his unit killed or wounded. 27 Medals of Honor are awarded, more than any other single battle in American history. Not because of exceptional heroism, but because heroism is so common that anything less than Medal of Honor-worthy actions is considered just doing your job. Of the 21,000 Japanese defenders, fewer than 1,000 survive. General Kuribayashi disappears into the tunnels and is never seen again. Before the war ends, more than 2,400 B-29 bombers make emergency landings on Iwo Jima. 25,000 crewmen's lives saved. The question military historians still debate: was it worth the price? The men who survived the Pacific Island battles return home changed. Not just physically, though the wounds are severe. Psychologically, they carry scars that 1940s medicine has no name for. Today we'd call it PTSD. Then they just called it the 1,000-yard stare. They've seen things that break human understanding. Friends disintegrated by artillery, banzai charges, flamethrower operations, cave fighting in pitch darkness, the smell of death in tropical heat. Some never speak of it. Others can't stop speaking of it. In the Pentagon, planners look at casualty figures from Tarawa, Peleliu, and Iwo Jima. They extrapolate, they calculate, and they reach a terrifying conclusion. If invading small islands costs tens of thousands of casualties, what will invading mainland Japan cost? The estimates are staggering. Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan, would be the largest amphibious operation in history. Millions of troops, thousands of ships, and the projected American casualties? 400,000 to 800,000 dead. Japanese casualties, military and civilian combined,
Estimates run into the millions. Intelligence reports show Japan mobilizing its entire population, women, children, elderly, everyone given a weapon, even if it's just a sharpened bamboo spear. The slogan, "The glorious death of 100 million," the whole nation prepared to die. And then, everything changes. July 16, 1945, New Mexico desert. The world's first atomic bomb detonates. President Truman faces an impossible choice. August 6th, Hiroshima. August 9th, Nagasaki. The immediate death toll over 200,000. The horror is absolute. But military analysts ask the impossible question. Compared to Operation Downfall, is it the lesser evil? This is the brutal calculus forced by the Pacific Island battles. The blood in the sand made the decision unavoidable. Every battle showed that Japan would never surrender through conventional means. Every island proved that casualties would only escalate. September 2, 1945. Aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, the surrender is signed. The war is over. And military historians begin a debate that continues to this day. Were the atomic bombs necessary, or had the island battles already shown conventional invasion was impossible? Here's what they don't teach you in history class. The psychological casualties in the Pacific outnumber the physical casualties in many units. One study shows that after 60 days of continuous combat, 98% of soldiers show psychiatric symptoms. The remaining 2%, they were already psychotic before the battle started. The Japanese on Saipan convinced civilians that Americans would torture and kill them. Over 1,000 Japanese civilians committed suicide by jumping off cliffs rather than surrender. Mothers threw their children off cliffs, then jumped themselves. American Marines watched in horror, trying desperately to convince them it was propaganda. The Pacific Ocean floor is a graveyard. Over 300 ships, thousands of aircraft, thousands of tanks, and bodies. So many bodies that they're still being found today, 75 years later. On Iwo Jima alone, over 12,000 Japanese soldiers are still missing. Their bodies remain in the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the island. Occasionally, cave systems collapse, revealing rooms full of skeletons, still at their posts. The average age of Marines who died on Iwo Jima, 19 years old. Boys, really, who became men in the worst way possible, and then became casualties before they could become anything else. Today, these islands are peaceful again. The blood has been washed away by decades of rain and tide, the craters filled in, the bunkers overgrown. But the sand remembers. Every grain of coral on these beaches was witness to the worst humanity can do to itself, and the best. Because amidst the nightmare, there was also courage beyond measure, brotherhood beyond understanding, sacrifice that defies explanation. The veterans who survived the battles carry two burdens, the memories of what they endured, and the memories of those who didn't come home, the friends who died in the sand, the brothers who were buried at sea, the boys who never got to become old men. They fought not for conquest, not for glory. They fought because their country asked them to, and they paid a price that should never be forgotten. This is Blood in the Sand, the Pacific Nightmare, the story of the battles that changed warfare forever, and the men who fought them. Lest we forget.